Hi everyone, and welcome to Long Live Crypto, your entertainment and engagement hub for all things crypto and Web3. I'm your host, Adam Mastrelli. I've been working in crypto and blockchain for over half a decade as an angel investor, at the corporate level, as an LP in crypto hedge funds, and as a current partner at the Woodstock Fund. The topics covered in this podcast are provided for general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Long Live Crypto. I'm your host, Adam Mastrelli. As you know, we are here with an amazing guest each week. And one of the things I want to talk about, we always do like long live something within the title, right? So today you'll find out, you can name it at the end for yourself, but we're going to lead in with long live life paths. This is Maika Isogawa. She'll introduce herself in a second. But when I met her, I was like, wait, you've done what? And this again, it was pretty amazing. So Maika, turn it over to you. Quick intro and we'll get going. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I was really looking forward to this for the exact same reason you said. Everything that came out of your mouth was a new talent, hobby, skill, something that was very interesting. So pumped to be here. But
love it. Yes,
quick intro. My name is Maika Isogawa, half Japanese, born in Japan, raised between Japan and America. I've been a circus performer, an engineer, and now I'm a crypto founder of a company called Webacy.
Sorry, I usually hear the third part a lot, that I'm a founder of a crypto Web3 company called something. The engineer I hear also, the circus performer part. Can we just start there? Because I think, your resume and your background is incredible. Stanford, right? Engineering, founder. I think we can get into that. And I do want to talk about Webacy, obviously. But can we start with circus performing and what that actually means and just walk us through that? And how did you come to do all the rest of the stuff that you're doing? Yeah, exactly. Where to start?
Yeah. I mean, I think some people have different ideas of what circus acrobatics means. So for context, I was a performer for Cirque Du Soleil, one of the largest circus and entertainment companies in the world. And I was an acrobat, specifically an aerialist. But some people you talk to have never heard of it. Some people think of Ringling Brothers and animals and clowns, right? So it's a different level of circus performance that you think of in your head. So the conversation changes depending on who you're talking to, but I was in that Cirque du Soleil kind of category.
That's right. And I mean, this is a famous business school case, right? When you talk about reinventing an industry, it's like, well, how do we reinvent the circus? And then usually at MBA, there's some version of, well, let's take the animals out. And it's like, no, that'll never work. And of course, Cirque du Soleil proves that wrong. How did you, one of the things that the reason I was so intrigued by this was I was an actor and a filmmaker and a singer and a dancer and all this stuff before I went back to business school, and now I'm in crypto and venture. So people ask me a lot, like, how did you do that? And I always say, well, it's this Steve Jobs quote of the dots connect always in the rearview mirror. And then the second follow-up is like, what lessons did you learn from being a circus performer and training and being there daily and 7 shows a week, whatever it is, that kind of cross over into your founding life or your engineering life? And I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, looking back in the rearview mirror kind of does feel like, here at the right time, right place, had the right skill set, that kind of thing really comes into clarity. So it makes me feel better about the current life path I'm on now and wondering 20 years from now what it's going to look like. But so I was first introduced to circus acrobatics when I was around 10, 11, so kind of late actually for a professional acrobat. Usually you're in gymnastics or diving or any of the above from a much younger age. And I grew up in Minnesota in the United States, and one of the largest youth circuses in the country is in St. Paul. It's called Circus Juventus. So I went there when I was young. I started getting into it, started with a summer camp, and every year just subsequently got more and more into it. And Cirque du Soleil would come to town. They would stay at the Mall of America in the parking lot, and I would go see them. And, I think there's some things that you do when you're young that you see that inspires you and makes you want to set new goals and dreams for yourself. And so seeing Cirque du Soleil for the first time when I was young kind of set that dream. It was never really like a tangible goal I was after, but kind of one thing led to another. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to run away and join the circus and work professionally. And I took that opportunity and worked for them for 2 years.
How great is that? I mean, there's probably like a few people in the history of the world. I like to ask this question, how many people in the history of the world have said they've run away to join the circus, right? It was frowned upon for such a long time in society. And now it's like, I've run away to join the circus, and everybody's like celebrating that because it's such an interesting life path. Quick segue. Mine is that I've held George Washington's bottom dentures in my hand. I hosted a TV show on the Travel Channel, and I actually held George Washington's dentures like in my hand. And I said, how many people in the history of the world have held George Washington's dentures in their hand? I said, probably, I don't know, under 500, definitely, maybe under 100. So I'm always intrigued by that. Okay, so circus, this was something you did when you were younger, and then that kind of bled into, now we talk about so you're from Minnesota, right? Or you grew up in Minnesota? And then you do...
I grew up between Tokyo and Minnesota.
Minnesota. And then you do physics and engineering at the University of Minnesota.
Yes. So I started, it was kind of this weird, like, accelerated program, but I did physics and engineering coursework at the University of Minnesota.
Fantastic. And how does that, is there any circus component of that that's like, oh, I liked physics because when I'm doing the trapeze, I know when I can grab the arms, or are they linked at all, or just two separate parts of you that come together as you're now a founder, or if you connect those dots in the rearview mirror?
You know, I wish I could say that there was some element of understanding physics that makes you a better performer, but when you're spinning up in the air like 3 stories up, I'm not thinking about like, you know, doing math and calculus while I'm up there. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so you do that, then you move forward and you graduate at University of Minnesota. Were you then working after that, or just right into Stanford, or how does that kind of work? Because it's such an interesting path, and I love, you know, when you see founders, when you see successful founders that have either raised rounds or have users, and it's, you know, sometimes it's just a more traditional path. I was in private equity, I did this, then I was a founder, I'm technical. You've really jumped around a lot, which has probably made you a well-rounded CEO and founder. But how does that kind of work with the Stanford engineering degree, and how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so interestingly, the University of Minnesota program was actually a high school accelerated program. So instead of doing my senior year of high school, I just went to the U of M full time. And so it was actually graduating from high school that I went to Stanford as like an incoming freshman properly.
Got it. Okay, fantastic. And then so you do Stanford. What's the difference between, like, you know, going from Minnesota to Stanford? And I mean, did you get it? You're instantly into the Valley. Did you know you wanted to do startups? Did you know you wanted to kind of be a founder, or were you over it? Were you in it? Like, what was the vibe of you in the Silicon Valley startup world?
I mean, have you been to Minnesota in the winter?
You know, I have. It is very, very cold. I like hockey. I do skate, but it is very cold. I do have to say that. Actually, I did a film, anyone who wants to check it out, on YouTube. It's called Dakota 38. I did this in 2008. It was basically 1863. Lincoln hangs about 38 men. This is during the Dakota Sioux Uprising in the in the West Coast, while the Civil War is going on in the East Coast. And so he commutes the sentence from 302 men to 38, and this is still the largest mass execution in U.S. history that nobody knows about it. This is obviously massively scarring for the Native American community. And so my friend knew a Native American kind of healer in that world, and he wanted to do a ride for healing for his people from Lower Brule, South Dakota, 330 miles to Mankato, Minnesota. And so we rode for a month, basically, in the snow. I rode a total of 30 miles. I didn't ride the whole 330 miles. I was in the car, filming and doing other things. But there are definitely men and women that rode all 330 miles, and just an incredible experience, and the value that I learned candidly from that. And I didn't realize all that history in Minnesota. So you must have grown up with that.
Oh, Dakota 38. I'll have to check it out.
That's right.
I didn't
Dakota
actually
38.
know too much of that story. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So that's the Minnesota part. So now you're at Stanford, you're finished, and then now we start the genesis, the Web3 genesis. How did you move from normal person? How did you move from normie to crypto lunatic and founder like the rest of us?
Normie to crypto lunatic is a good pathway for sure. So funny enough, my first introduction to blockchain was actually on tour with Cirque Du Soleil. Some of my smarter or wittier coworkers were mining Bitcoin from their apartments. So when you're touring with Cirque, they pay for your housing.
Yes.
Right. So there's no energy cost because it's on the hotel, the apartment building. And so it was really brilliant, actually. And so that's when I first heard about Bitcoin for the first time, 2014, 2015 kind of timeline.
Yeah.
So when I went back to school, I was like, what is this? Let me learn about cryptography. Let me learn about blockchain. And I personally didn't really get into it individually until 2017 and 2021 with the DeFi summer and the NFT bull run. But
Yeah.
tangentially, it was there from the beginning.
I love that. And you heard it here first that Maika did not get introduced to crypto and Bitcoin at Stanford, but in the circus, where circus performers were mining crypto. This is like probably the best thing that I've ever heard. So it really is a circus. Now, when we talk about, everything going on with the last 6 months, it really is a circus. Okay. So you come back, then you're at Stanford, you start getting into it. When you graduate, do you immediately found Webacy? Do you work for someone else? How do you what's that path like?
Yeah, so post-graduation, I actually graduated during the pandemic. And so I was seeing a lot of friends get their offers rescinded from smaller companies like startups and so on. So when I was choosing what offer to go to, I did not found a company straight out of college. I actually went to Microsoft, which was actually a great role. It was super stable, secure, everything my Japanese dad would want me to have in my life. But that was my first role out of college.
That's right. And so you do Microsoft, if I am looking this correct, about a year, and then you say, okay, I'm good. What happens in that year to say, I'm rejecting you, Dad. Nothing personal, but I'm off and doing my own thing. What was that narrative for that year? Just you couldn't take it, or you saw opportunity, or was it just you met someone, or you met people that really kind of said, okay, this is exactly what I want to do?
Yeah, I think so. During college, most of my internship experiences were actually with smaller startups. And so I really, really got a lot out of those. And I saw that even as a young person with very little experience, how much impact I could make and how much fun it was to build something new that didn't exist before. So coming into Microsoft, it was a great experience to have that big corporate job that everyone talks about and everyone strives towards, really. But I just realized that my day-to-day was so honestly boring. And I felt like my skills weren't utilized. I was doing a bunch of stuff outside of work, and I just didn't feel like it was the best use of my drive and my passions and my capabilities. Yeah. And so while I did look around at different job opportunities elsewhere, I just had this idea for what became Webacy, and I just knew that at some point you have to bet on yourself, and that was kind of the time to do so.
Perfect. Okay, this is the perfect segue into Webacy. So you have the idea, and then just tell us what Webacy is. And I mean, I know a little bit about it here. We've spoken about it. We've met in person. I know Brian, love him. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of Webacy and what are you trying to solve in the crypto space?
So Webacy is the protection layer for self-custody. But where we started is very different from where we are today. As startups do, they change and they grow. And so I'm really proud of actually where it is today. But we initially started the company for two main reasons. So first thing, we both had someone kind of close to us pass away in our familial circle, and they had crypto and other digital assets. And so we knew that this is a problem, first of all, because it's really hard to recover crypto from someone who's passed away and either didn't leave the keys behind, didn't think about it, and so on. And so many US-based adults and adults everywhere don't think about post-mortem kind of management of assets. And so that was one big category. Second thing, I got hacked. I got phished kind of in the crypto NFT minting space. You did.
God, I totally did.
What happened to you?
Dude, it's totally my fault. Like I was at a conference and I was like super excited. A token that I was like doing biz dev for was like pumping and I was like getting ready to go out and I accidentally basically hit on an airdrop link and then I had to sign on the wallet and in my MetaMask. And like before I knew it, I clicked it twice. I was like, and you know when you do something and you immediately just go white, like just whoa.
Yes.
I knew that I did it. At like my brain woke up or something, and it said, "Why did you?" And then I went to try to reject transaction, didn't work. And then when I checked it, like literally 2 minutes later, drained, just in that one asset. And I was like, oh. And I've been doing that this was in 2020. This was earlier this year, and I've been doing it for this since 2016, 2017. And I said, if I, you know what I mean? If that can happen to me at one moment of really not being self-aware or aware of what I was doing, this can happen to anyone. So what was your situation?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's so devastating. And
I
felt
devastated.
Super embarrassed when it was happening.
I was so embarrassed. I was like, I don't deserve to be in this space. I don't deserve my job. I'm leaving. Yes. Let me just crawl into a hole. You know, I'm going to go work for somebody else now. So yeah.
Exactly. It's like never again, never touching this, but here I am. No, but so my situation was kind of similar. They were playing on speed and timing and excitement, but I was on a whitelist for a NFT collection embarrassingly, again, it was the Justin Bieber, like in-betweeners NFT collection that sold out, and it was pretty successful and so on. But I got a Discord link, and this is when I was first joining Discord. Like I wasn't really like a Discord person. I was still figuring it out. Didn't turn off my DMs. Someone messaged me, looked exactly like the mod. It was over.
Same.
It was over.
Yeah, and I mean, like at least maybe Justin, I know you're listening to this. If you do have a concert coming up, Maika's open to going, being on stage, sharing the story, maybe sharing in a song. I'm open to doing a podcast at your next concert. So I know he's listening.
It's the only reason I'm still holding on to the NFTs is for concert tickets.
That's awesome. Okay, so continue. That's where it started. So continue where Webacy is today. Love to talk about what we're solving today and how you think it's going.
Yeah, so today we have a whole suite of security tools that help users manage their own assets. So I think especially, I don't want to talk about the whole like FTX, whole centralized collapse that happened in the past couple months, but because of it, we're seeing billions of assets of influx into self-custody.
That's right.
So this is like MetaMask, your Ledger, your Arculus, everything that is self-held. And this is where you also make the user error and mistakes of getting drained and hacked. And so in the space, we've created a couple different services that help for it. Things like real-time notifications through our product Wallet Watch. You can get an SMS text and an email for anytime anything happens in your wallet. It's awesome. It's very useful for me as well. We have a backup wallet in case you lose access to your assets in general, like you forget your seed phrase or you lose your password, which happens all of the time. Again, embarrassingly, but it's just user error.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have a panic button in case of hacks and scams. And in the case of this happening, you could transfer everything to a backup wallet in one click, which helps if you're kind of in a time race with a hacker or malicious content.
Where were you, Webacy, when I needed you? I wish I knew about this a year ago. One of the more philosophical question, a lot of when there's both, hey, not your keys, not your crypto, everything is self-custody, the kind of, let's call it Bitcoin natives will have this conversation. Then there's a whole separate part of this philosophy. It's like people don't like that. Like people just want the bank to hold it. Like I want someone else to trust it. I don't trust myself with it. So is the philosophy, is it binary in your mind, or is it like we get to a point where self-custody feels like what we're used to as humans at scale in this world of somebody else holding our assets in trust? So can you just walk me through how you either think about that, timelines? Are we ready for it now? Will we be ready for it in a few years? Like when you talk about it internally.
I think you bring up a really good point, because many, many people in this space are in crypto because they like philosophically the idea of owning our own stuff, being bankless, being decentralized and being in charge of our own destiny.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're also human and we're incredibly lazy and also easily distracted. And so there's a reason why centralized banks do so well, is because they take off the responsibility and the management that it comes with dealing with something so important. So I think, for blockchain to truly survive and lots of people to utilize it in a useful and thinking about longevity kind of way, it's going to be an abstraction of that responsibility, whether it be through better services, kind of like what we're building, or whether it be through a centralized-esque layer that helps people better manage their assets.
Centralized-esque. I'm using that in every podcast after this.
Very descriptive.
Very descriptive. I do like making up words-ish. I just quick segue. I was flying back from Denver a few years ago, and the flight kept getting pushed back from like 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. Like it was. By the end of it, there was like, everybody had left. I was holding on that I would get out of Denver that night. And whatever airline it was said something like 7:30. And then they put the letters on the board, ish. And I thought that was like the funniest thing ever. I was like, I'm staying just to see what happens next at the board instead of leaving. So, okay. So that's where you are as far as the philosophy of self-custody. How have users been like, and are we talking B2C users, me as an individual? Do you have conversations with B2B conversations of like, hey, I want this for my suite of products? How do you kind of look at it from a kind of growth perspective?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at our platform and the majority of our marketing, it is a bit more B2C or B2B2C oriented, because it's something individual users can just connect their wallet and protect their stuff. But the B2B angle is definitely there. And many of our conversations have actually leaned that way, because these big hedge funds that need to really manage risk about access and stuff, they need tools like the ones we're building. And so there's many opportunities for B2B integration too.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to shift topics a little bit. You're a very impressive Forbes 30 under 30. Round of applause. This is very exciting.
Thank you.
I always like saying this, and it's got to be incredibly exciting for you, not only for the achievement, for the network, for people around you, and it obviously adds legitimacy to what you're up to. I want to pivot from Forbes 30 under 30 to I love asking this question, 100% stealing this from Patrick O'Shaughnessy and Invest Like the Best. But, what was your life like before the age of 14 that has kind of set you up to be the successful entrepreneur that you are today and done all of the amazing things that you've done? Usually people have there's a theory here of what happened to us or what our lives were like before 14 has really shaped us. So is there anything that comes up when I say that for you?
I'm thinking, if I knew this was going to be a therapy session, I would have laid down on a couch before we started this.
Exactly.
No, but let me think through all my trauma and think about what would have caused this.
Exactly.
No. I'm trying to think. I think one piece is being able to grow up between two different cultures, which is not unique anymore, but Japan and the United States is quite different. And so I think as a child, learning a lot about how to shift angles depending on what kind of environment you're in, or being able to fit in, but also state your mind. It's a lot of that East meets West kind of stuff that we all love in the culture space, but growing up as a 5-year-old, it's really hard. That was one piece that I'm sure has shaped me. Beyond that, I've always been a bit of an entrepreneurial-minded child. So it wasn't lemonade stands. It was selling bracelets at school. It was, creating services for teachers while I was growing up because they had the money, not my fellow classmates.
So wait a minute. You recognized early on that the people with the money were not your fellow students. You're going to go sell it to the teachers.
Exactly.
Oh my God! Wait,
of course. My fellow students didn't have any money.
They didn't have any money. So give me an example. What was a product or something that you either looked to sell to teachers, and how was it received?
So, for example, I got really into baking. I kind of go through this, this hobby cycling methodology. Even now, today, I do that too. But I got really into baking, and I was actually quite good at decorating. So I'd tell the teachers that if they had an event coming up for a niece's birthday, a baby being born, I would make their cake for them, right? And so I could do that, and I made some money on the side. But the teachers always had something going on because there was families and siblings and relationships involved.
I love it. Okay, so that's kind of the pre-14-year-old version of you that's really entrepreneurial, that already recognizes where the spend is, and that you're going to go kind of create products for that within. And you seem to be very good at delving into the hobbies that you like and then either turning them into businesses and your own personal experience, right? And even with Webacy, right? It sounds like it was generated out of a problem that you were solving for yourself. Do you find that when you speak to other entrepreneurs or other folks on these lists and that are at your level, that it's something that has happened to them that they are solving, or do you feel that's unique to you and your estimation?
That's a good question. I think the best companies and the best founders are ones that stem from solving a personal problem. Because really, as a founder, everyone listening probably knows you have these ups and down days, and there's many days that are super either monotonous or you have a bunch of things that don't go right. And to get through those days, it's so much easier if you know that you're building something that's, first of all, useful for what you want to do, but also useful for everyone else too. But that just comes from personal problem, I think.
Good. Okay, I want your advice on this, on something, right? I just had a friend come in who works for a large large crypto fund, and he said, look, our founders are everything, right? And now there's the oratory of this, and then there's the actual performance of this to how do venture funds really add value to founders. So this is your time. If you were on a soapbox, we're moving from the therapist couch to the soapbox. Think of this as the circus. You're P.T. Barnum telling people why they should come into the circus. But I think the question is, what really separates for your rounds and funds that you are already involved with you and in the future, what really separates venture funds, because we'll have a lot of people here that care about this, being able to add value to your company?
For a second, while we were talking, I forgot you were on the dark side. You're an investor.
Aha, I've got you. I want that early round. I want that early round.
Yeah, when as a founder, when I'm evaluating which kinds of funds to talk to, clearly there's that tier one, the name's just gigantic. It's a dream kind of company level. But beyond that, I'm really thinking about the person I'm talking to, right? So the partner I'm working with, do I really want to be working with this person? So can I have a conversation? Are they getting to know me as both a founder? Because we're still early stage, right? So it's less about, again, like the company and the numbers, but it's a lot about the team, who I am, what motivates me and everyone else building Webacy. And so I think taking the care to get to know the team first and foremost, because our company's solid, right? Like we have users, we have incredible technology and so on. So that's kind of to set aside. When it comes to adding value, especially when a round is more than just two big players, if it's kind of like a syndicate, I'm looking for who can bring value in certain areas, because one fund can't do it all.
That's right.
So it could be anything from talent. Hiring is one of my biggest challenges in this space. Talent pipeline, connections for portfolio companies, portfolio synergies. That's huge for me. Beyond that, good brand, marketing, help, everything in the space matters, but it's beyond just cash at this point, because there's cash everywhere.
Let's talk about hiring. You really hit on something that I think I heard in a David Senra founders podcast, which some version of, I think it might have been Steve Jobs saying, and it's a little dichotomous, because he was saying, well, I don't have time to talk about hiring. He's like, look, hiring is the most important thing you do as a founder, right? And then he learned from this, where he went to Next, and like the first hire he made was like an interior designer for like his office or something. And so this was not good, right? This is an example of what he learned over those 7 years at Next, right? So talk about hiring for a little bit. What do you look for when you're expanding the team? Specific roles, personality types, like you kind of I heard you mention a little bit like that fit, that like, do you fit in with the culture? And how do you even begin to drive culture as a startup? Is it just people people that you talk to, people that you have a drink with, you vibe with, network from Stanford, Brian's friends? What does that look like?
Hiring is so hard, I think, because what you just said, it's one of the most, if not the most important thing I can do as a CEO of a company. And especially at our stage, we're only 8 people. And so every new hire, especially a full-time hire, changes the company culture. It changes the dynamic of everyone who's working together, and it changes whether or not we're going to reach the goals that we want to reach. And so with all those things, it becomes, first of all, the top of my priority list to both meet new people, but also source new people, right? And as a small company with limited resources, it's not like we can pay a huge recruiter to find these people for us. And so it's a lot of self-sourcing, getting the team to throw their hats in and refer people also. So in terms of hiring, it comes from everywhere. It comes from network. It comes from AngelList. All of the palette even has a bunch of good resources too. When it comes to who we're looking for, it's definitely an art that I've found more than a science. For every interview, we do try to kind of structure it the same way so each candidate gets a fair shot. But at the end of the day, you're kind of putting yourself out there and just trusting and hoping that that the person on the other end is the true person that you're supposed to be hiring. And again, I think hiring books have talked about this, but hire fast, fire fast is something that is well known.
Yeah.
And we've yet to get to that space because the ones that we've hired have kind of stayed on board. So we're looking good so far.
I love it. And look, there's nobody that I can think of other than I would actually put myself in this category that kind of straddles this art and science modality better than you, right? You've had an opportunity to work in the art world and the science world. And right, if you go back to Steve Jobs, he's like, look, we really look for people that kind of, the PhD, if it were, would be between art and science, right? Or math and culture, something like that. So do you find that to be true for yourself? Do you consider yourself a little bit of a unicorn in this space? Or when you hear other people's backgrounds, are you like, oh my God, I'm a complete outlier? Or do you feel that there are just people that have this within them and they're drawn to the space, and if we're more patient, that people will kind of emerge with some of those tendencies?
It's tough. I don't think that I'm not expecting anything to come to me, and I definitely can't call myself a unicorn until my company is a unicorn.
Oh,
so
hey,
check back with me in a couple of years.
That's the tagline of your life right there. I can't call myself a unicorn until my company is a unicorn. I really like that. I'm going to, Dan, make sure I remember that. That's exceptional. That is wonderful.
Well, thank you. But yeah, no, I really believe that. And I think it's actually quite hard for me. I don't love talking about myself and like talking about, things that I do. Maybe it's the Japanese side, but it makes me uncomfortable for some reason, which I need to get past to be a good leader of the company in general. But that's something I really truly believe in.
Nice. Nice. Well, you never know, right? I mean, you're working through whatever you think is the best way to run your company. And I mean, I think the East-West cross, in addition to the art and science, is a strong point, right? And as you work through it, the things that you may think are, hey, this is a liability, I'm not doing it this way, might be the strength. So who knows? We're all making it up as we go along. Another Steve Jobs quote. This sponsored posthumously by Steve Jobs, who could have used Webacy if he was in need of digital assets posthumously. I want to zoom out before we're going to finish with some fun maxims and quotes and things like that. But I want to zoom out in the macro. It is a rough 6 months for crypto for the day-to-day, 3AC, Celsius, FTX. I mean, the list goes on. And that's just in the micro aspect. It's under the backdrop of the macro. How do you find it out there? Like what's going on? Are you losing steam? Are you going to the gym more to keep your energy up? Is it more difficult than it was, or are you just heads down? Just it doesn't matter what's happening behind us. We're building.
It's brutal out here.
It's brutal.
No, I mean, I think the environment is brutal. It feels like 2020 has just been rough for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But I feel very lucky and fortunate that our company is still small, still seeing a lot of good traction and growth. Especially we're in that self-custody space, as I mentioned before.
This is actually
the users are here.
Right.
People,
and that's a great area. Just not only from
people are
the
bullish.
macro might be a little different, but that's right. The thing that we talk about that kicked off after FTX was told you DeFi's working. It's the problem is with the centralized exchanges. Take control of your keys. So I think self-custody has, in a good way for you, been thrust into the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as the narrative, as the people who are writing the articles that big populations are reading become more knowledgeable about crypto, the narrative will change. They'll get the difference between centralized, decentralized. They're going to figure it out and realize that the technology underlying everything is actually still super valid, super useful as we tackle new problems in the space.
Okay, before I get into the maxims, talk about, you said the technology. What's kind of like the underlying tech of Webacy? Like how does it work? I mean, without giving away the trade secrets, like I like the idea of the emergency stop button and some of those features, but like, can you just walk us through what it looks like to build that, other than, I do like engineering magic, but if we're revealing the covers just for the audience to say, how does that even work? I mean, I know when, if I have an American Express credit card or any credit card, it's like, I know that I'm not responsible for fraudulent transactions because I saw Spider-Man in a commercial, like swing down and say, what's in your wallet or whatever, and say, or Samuel L. Jackson, and say, you're not responsible for those fraudulent charges. So I trust a Marvel character. Like, how do you just walk people through learning about Web3 to understand like how that magic actually happens?
Yeah, luckily there's nothing like magic sauce about Webacy because everything's on the blockchain, so you can go look.
Yeah.
And that's part of the magic sauce of trusting the blockchain, right? Because you can see everything that's going on. But there's two main things about Webacy that makes us special. So the first one is that we are non-custodial, which is a term that is liked and disliked in the community. But what it means, the way I'm saying it, is that we don't take control of any of your assets. So we are not a wallet ourselves. We're not a bank. We're not a vault of any kind. So users can bring whatever tools and services that they want to use and they have already used and just utilize us as a layer on top of it. So if you have a MetaMask, you can come to us with your MetaMask and you don't have to move anything around. You can just use us as is, which is pretty magical.
You're the MetaMask, essentially, right? And for other MetaMask, it's M squared. Yeah, no, I got it. That makes total sense. So you're sitting on, and it's not an opaque layer on top. It's a clear layer on top that, whether you're using your MetaMask or your Phantom wallet or anything, that you can see it.
Exactly. And you're setting up your own stuff, which is the great thing. And the second thing is we're completely no access. So with all of our services that we're able to provide to you, we don't need your seed phrase. You don't need to give us your private keys. It's no access. So the underlying tech is actually through pre-approvals. So it's very similar to how if you want to list an NFT on OpenSea, you signed a pre-approval transaction for a certain ETH amount or whatever you're listing it at.
Yeah.
It's very similar tech for what we're using.
And that works across tokens and NFTs. Any other kind of asset types that you're working with right now?
So we're built completely on Ethereum, so ERC-20s, 721s, 1155s, and then we're going to move to Polygon and then support all the EVMs, and then eventually we'll get to Solana too and all the chains.
Got it. I love it. All of the chains, all of the time. I love the 1151. Right? It's 1151. Is that right? I'm saying that's the kind of
55.
55. Yeah. This is the grouping of them, and so instead of sending one NFT, I'm doing a grouping of these. Correct?
Yeah, it's kind of like non-fungible fungible NFTs. It's a weird standard.
Dan, again, non-fungible fungibles and MetaMask, I think could be T-shirts at some point for Webacy. Okay, that was very helpful. Let's turn a little bit. In the last few minutes that we have, one of the things I love maxims. I love quotes. One of the David Senra, if for those who haven't listened to Founders Podcast, I get paid nothing for this. It's just incredible. The guy is just on fire. He stands up during his podcasts. He literally is just reading biographies and then sharing what other entrepreneurs are sharing and founders throughout history. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, do not wait till the iron is hot to strike, but make it hot by striking. This is W.B. Yeats, Irish poet. And so I kind of always, when I forget that, I try to remind myself, or I try to put it out and have just people. It's my responsibility to generate that heat in a way. Are there any maxims that either family, friends, Cirque, engineer, through your life that you write on your mirror, or you have on the back of your door, or your laptop that you live by?
I think I go hot and cold with phrases as with English phrases, kind of like the live, laugh, love is like a trope that gets laughed about. But
exactly.
have one from my childhood.
Sorry, I'm laughing at that because it's gotten eviscerated. Oh my God. I feel so bad for moms in the Midwest, I just want my home for the holidays to say live, laugh, love, and people eviscerating her online. It's like, dude, wow. Okay, but sorry, I cut you off.
Well, the best part is when you go to an Airbnb and they have all of these all around the bathroom and the living room. It's hilarious. I went to a gym the other day at a hotel and it said, "You can do it" on the wall. It was work hard, play harder. And it was so good. So this is why I have trouble with phrases and maxims. Yours have been fantastic. Right. I don't know how you remember who says it and what exactly it is.
Right.
But growing up, my mom would have this sticker on the fridge that said, I cannot remember exactly who said it, but do what you can with what you have where you are, or something very similar to that. That stayed with me over the years.
Yeah, and that must keep you. That sounds like that phrase is you sound a little bit like a quarterback. I think of an NFL quarterback that throws an interception, but you do what you have with what you did in the moment, and you just threw an interception, but now you have to get back to the next play. Right, you really have to it didn't matter what just happened. You're here, and now you're here, and now you're here. Is that keeping you present? Is that something that it's enlightening for you?
I think it's very close to stoicism, which is something I came across while at Cirque. Right, it's a way to deal with many ups and downs, kind of thing. So it's very close to home.
Is stoicism big in the Cirque community? I like asking that. I never thought I'd say that in my life, but is stoicism big in the Cirque community? I love it.
I wish I could be Essie and say yes, but no, people are all over the place.
That's great. Sounds like crypto.
In the best of ways.
In the best of ways. And obviously, for those who haven't seen a Cirque show or any sort of a sense of play show or a circus or any of these performances, support the arts, go out and see a show. As an actor, former actor and a filmmaker, I think one of the things that I learned a ton of was a ton of rejection. Getting through uncomfortable, you've done uncomfortable physical poses that you had to sit through. It's kind of why we like yoga. I think a little bit of breathing through those poses, but having to be on stage and forgetting a line or be in an audition and just totally bomb, I think it toughens you up a little bit. It's kind of like the artistic David Goggins in a way, right? So, okay. Final question that I ask everybody, again, completely stolen from Patrick O'Shaughnessy and Invest Like the Best, full credit. What is the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for you?
Great question. I have two things that come to mind. Can I share two?
You can share as many as you like.
Okay, the first one, I'm not sure if all of us drive cars, but I personally do. And sometimes they just get dirty overall, and the thought of cleaning it is actually tiresome. And so I had someone who gave me a gift of cleaning my car for me. So they took it and washed all the the floor mats and cleaned every nook and cranny of that car. So it was beautiful when I got it back.
Oh my
so
God.
That was one
I love
very
that.
kind act of
And
service
they
that I
cleaned
received.
it. They didn't
awesome,
outsource it. They cleaned the car.
They cleaned the car
Wow,
by
even
themselves.
better.
It was awesome.
I love it.
That's a great thing.
That
I
is a
received.
great thing.
I think I'm noticing acts of service is one of my love languages, I think.
That's right. That's right. Mine is words of
second thing-
mine is words of affirmation for anyone listening that wants to call me.
You are a fantastic host.
Oh my God. I didn't even
shirt's great.
I didn't even like set
my
you up for
second
that.
favorite thing. Not at all.
Not at all.
You could check off the compliments.
Exactly.
Yeah, the second kindest thing I would have to say, growing up, during every spring break, my mother would plan and take me on an international trip.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I think that's something for a single mother to take time out of her day to plan, to be brave enough to travel with her young preteen, tween daughter to all these international countries that she didn't speak the language in. We didn't get a hotel either. We rented an apartment and we lived like locals. And so it's something that's quite incredible that I thought is very kind that I will remember forever.
Well, look, Maika, you are completely at home wherever you are. So big thanks to your mom for making you kind of realize that at a young age. You've been an exceptional guest. I hope you come back. And everything about Webacy and your life will be in the show notes below. So from everybody here at Long Live Crypto, Long Live Life Paths, you get to decide. This is a choose your own adventure ending, what this episode is called. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Thank you again, Maika.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show.